Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream. This is the coverage of the U.S. National Aerobatic Championships by the International Aerobatic Club. I am Jim Burke. I'm here with Goody Thomas. We are picking up the action with competitor number 3 in the Advanced Free Unknown. Unfortunately, we missed the live stream coverage on competitor 1 and 2. Darren Beam and Ryan Chapman have already flown. In the box right now is Stan Moy. We'll be playing the first 2 flights back at the end of the day, so you'll have a chance to watch those later on. But for now, we're moving on with Stan Moy, who's doing his warm-up figure in the box right now. Here's our schedule. Darren Beam and Ryan Chapman, as I mentioned, have already flown. Stan Moy is in the box right now, just finishing up his warm-up figure. After Stan, we have Thomason and then Brit Lincoln, Mike Galloway, a lot of great pilots coming up here. I'm assisted today by Goody Thomas. Goody is an unlimited competitor along with me, and we're hanging out today giving you all the information we can about the pilots, help you understand how the flights are going to go, and giving a little bit of commentary here and there, especially between competitors. So if you have questions, you can go to the live chat and type in a question there. We'll try and find it later and get you an answer.
And for everybody at home, it is a beautiful day here. Absolutely not a cloud in the sky. We are having to deal with significant winds. As Jim stated earlier, the winds are out of the southwest, anywhere from 18 to 22 knots from the surface all the way through 3,000 feet. And Stan Moy coming into the box with Sequence J, flying a 300S from Albany, Georgia.
All right, coming in with, as Goody just said, Sequence J. The competitors can pick which sequence to fly in this program. First figure for Stan is going to be a square loop from inverted. Looks like Stan has decided not to begin. Competitors are allowed to reset if they feel like they didn't pick the right line. They want to make sure they're the right altitude and the right spot in the box. Sometimes when you're coming in, you'll see that the wind is pushing you in a way you weren't expecting. You'll decide to set back up. That's perfectly within the rules, so we'll just wait for Stan to get himself set up again.
A little bit about Stan as he repositions for his start of the sequence. Stan in 2012 won the U.S. National Intermediate Championship, and he has several achievement awards, Sportsman Smooth and Stars. And 2018 World Advanced Aerobatic Championships in Romania. Stan was fortunate enough to participate with many of our local competitors here in Kansas today.
Looks like he's sitting back up, getting ready to dive in. Here we go. Competitors will wag 3 times to begin their sequence. And this is an inverted entry, so I assume Stan's going to roll inverted, then do the wag, looks like. There's an inverted roll. 1, 2, 3, 3 wags. Begin with figure 1. It's a square loop. He'll push to vertical up. And then push to horizontal. Snap roll on the top of the square loop. Push to vertical down. And then push back to level. That completes figure 1. Figure 2. Push 45, full roll in the 45. Now pull 3/4 loop. This is called a goldfish. He'll pull all the way back to 45 upright. And then draw a line in this 45 and push back to level. Figure 3, full roll, half loop down. It's a push half loop. Big negative G on the bottom of these push half loops. 1.5 roll on the bottom, back to upright flight. Figure 4, pull 45. 2 of 4 on this 45. This is a diagonal Humpty. So he'll do a 2 of 4 to invert it, and then pull half loop back to 45 upright. And now a 2-point roll on the way down here, 2 half rolls, and pull back to level. Figure 5, P loop. He'll pull now to a 3/4 loop, pause the 3/4 loop with an 8-point roll on the top. down line, a 2 of 8 roll, and pushing out would be correct, but it looks like he pulled. I think he got a little discombobulated there, so he's going to come back in, I'm sure. But for right now, he's going to wag out to indicate to the judge he's taking a break, and he'll come back in and begin with either figure 5 or figure 6.
In any case of anyone watching today, when a competitor takes a break, there is no limitation as far as a competitor needing to reorient himself and come back into the aerobatic box to pick back up where they left off from the previous figure.
Until you're flying unlimited, there's not a lot of penalty for a break. People should take it more often, I feel like, especially in sports, but sometimes I think, well, it's only 5 points, you know. Don't worry about it so much. Just take a break and get yourself a nice figure if you're out of sorts. And with wind like we had today, it can be really hard to keep it in the box, so why not take a break?
And sometimes before sequences start, competitors might decide to have planned breaks in the sequence so they don't sacrifice their figure quality. They figure out the point deductions and think, well, I can take a couple breaks and continue with very good figure quality and take some penalty points for breaks. But as Jim stated, the higher the category, the higher the penalty for taking that break.
Stan's not quite in frame right now. He has some time to set himself back up. He needs to begin with figure 6. He could start with figure 5, maybe begin with figure 6. Figure 5 would be an upright start, which is a little easier to manage. The figure 6 would be an inverted start. If he starts figure 5, he has to do the 8-point roll and the P-loop over again, but only for the purpose of setting himself up for figure 6. It won't be scored again. He's already received his score for figure 5, whatever that is. And if you're just tuning in, we saw Stan was meant to do a 2 of 8 roll on the down line. Looks like he did some other combinations, so that explains why he decided to take a break, why he decided to pull upright and get himself situated before he began figure 6. He may be choosing to take figure 6 away from us. I hear him over our heads right now. In fact, that looks like what he's doing. He's rolled inverted and waiting to see if he begins figure 6. I guess deciding he still wasn't set up where he needed to be. It's a very complicated day with the wind conditions, so we'll give Stan some time to sort that out. You're watching the International Aerobatic Club's live stream coverage of the U.S. National Aerobatic Championships. Right now we have Stan Moy in the box flying the advanced free unknown. Darren Beam and Ryan Chapman have already flown. Those flights were not broadcast, but they'll be saved and shown later. So check back in later. You can watch those flights. Right now we have Stan Moy in the box. Following Stan with Tom Thomason in his Giles 202, and then Brit Lincoln in the Extra 330 SC. It's a windy day today. It's going to be 97 degrees today. Right now it's not quite that hot. We're at 93. Still pretty toasty out here. We're on the tarmac on the west side of the airport with the judges, and the heat is coming off that tarmac. Luckily, we're shaded a little bit better than they are, so we don't have to worry about it quite as much as they do. Here we go. I hear Stan setting back up. There's some wags. Looks like he'll be starting with figure 6. Figure 6, push to vertical. Hammerhead. With a quarter roll on the down line. He'll need to do this quarter roll to the right so we can begin setting up for figure 7, which needs to go upwind. Figure 7 is a reverse half Cuban. Pull 45, snap roll on this 45, and now pushing 5/8 loop. This is another one with some pretty big negative G on the bottom. At the bottom of this push, it'll be an inverted flight. He needs to roll to upright flight to complete this figure. That ends figure 7. Figure 8 is a P loop. Pull vertical, then push 3/4 loop. On the bottom is figure 3/4 roll followed by a quarter roll. Figure 9 is simply a half roll. Figure 10 is a diagonal Humpty, push 45, 4 of 8, 4 45-degree rotations on the roll axis. Now push half loop to 45 down inverted. 2 of 4 on this 45. And pull upright. Figure 11 is simply another half roll. Figure 12, 2 of 4 to upright, pull half loop, and then a half snap and a 4 of 8 in the same direction. So here comes the half snap. She did left, so we'll expect the 4 of 8 to go to the left as well. 1, 2, and 3, 4 points of an 8-point roll. Figure 13, half roll, pull P-loop. Back to vertical down, and then he'll pull level for figure 14, which is the last figure. Another diagonal Humpty. Pull 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop to 45 down inverted. And on this 45 inverted line, he will do a half roll and then pull back to level to finish figure 14 and the sequence. So an unfortunate misstep there for Stan in figure 5, followed by a little bit of confusion setting himself back up with the winds the way they are today. It's very difficult to do that, but at the end of the day, he is finished with his flight, all 14 figures done and accounted for, and we are going to be moving on to the next competitor, who will be Tom Thomason. Tom is flying a Giles 202. Goody, tell us a little about Tom.
Yeah, Tom Thompson is coming up on our pilot number 4. He'll be flying also Sequence J, which we just had the pleasure to watch Stan fly. Tom Thompson's out of Ocala, Florida, big horse country down there. G202 aircraft of choice, and so it's a carbon fiber composite monoplane, originally manufactured by Acrotech Aviation in the Oregon area. The tandem two-seater was based upon the original single-seat Giles 200, and it was produced as a kit plane by the Acrotech. Tom, he also helped provide some of the framework for the MX2. Interesting fact, the prototype MX2 still carries its original Giles 202 designation on the FAA type certificate. I did not know that.
I didn't either.
As we'll see with the single seat Giles 200, 202, MX single seat and MX2, we are witnessing the evolution of this aircraft in the family of the Giles. And the aircraft has really been brought to a very high level in the single place MX2, or MX, that Jim Burke, Rob Holland currently fly, and a couple of French pilots as well.
Great. Well, we are listening to the sound of Tom Thomason. I'll bring him on screen here and get rid of this graphic. There's Tom flying inverted above us right now in his Giles 202. Have not flown a Giles 202. Have you flown any of the Giles? I flew a Giles 200. Just recently, in fact.
Yeah, I have not had the opportunity to fly.
Yeah. Great flying airplane. I mean, amazing performance for a 4-cylinder airplane. Great roll rate. Obviously, everyone knows that, I suppose, but really impressive airplane. Tom is doing his warm-up figure right now. Our cameraman today is Forrest Fox, our chief judge, Peggy Riedinger. It's about 95 degrees. Beautiful cloudless sky, but unfortunately for the pilots, a lot of wind, both from the south and from behind the judges, pushing them away from us, which has made it a little bit challenging for everyone today. The 2023 U.S. National Airbag Championships are sponsored by many companies. Our diamond sponsors are Extra Aircraft and MX Aircraft. We welcome and thank our platinum sponsors, Aura Aero and Softy. Our gold sponsors, Aircraft Spruce and Specialty. And we have silver and bronze level sponsors as well. I'll get to those later on. We thank those top tier sponsors for their donations, for their help, so we can put this on for you and put on this wonderful live stream coverage. Tom is setting up to dive into the box for the first figure. in sequence J, which is the square loop.
Yeah, Jim, just taking a look at the current surface winds here. They just came out about 5 minutes ago. Winds are showing 200 degrees at 12, gusting to 20 down here on the surface, and still blowing 20 to 22 knots at an altitude of the regime these pilots are currently flying in.
All right, well, thanks to the weather report. We have Tom diving in, rolling inverted, wagging 3 times. He'll begin his sequence now with a push to vertical for the square loop. Following that by a push to horizontal for the snap. Then a push to vertical down. And push back to level. Challenging figure. Figure 2, push 45. Full roll on this 45. And a 3/4 loop, positive. So he'll be pulling all the way back to 45 upright. And then after drawing a line here, he'll push to level. And figure 3 is a roll, followed by a half loop down, and a 1.5 roll on the bottom. Should end in upright. Figure 4 is a diagonal Humpty with a 2 of 4. These are challenging sequences, these unknowns. Tom should be an upright flight here. Okay, there he's fixed that. He's corrected that issue. So for figure 5, he's going to be beginning correctly. Figure 5 is a P-loop. Should begin with a 3/4 pull. Looks like Tom's gone to the vertical. He has an 8-point roll on top. Pulling to vertical down, 2 of 8, and then push out. Figure 6, push to vertical. Hammerhead. Quarter roll down, he'll need to do that to the left so we can go back upwind. Pull level. Figure 7 is a reverse half Cuban. Pull 45. Snap roll on the 45. Push 5/8 loop. Half roll on this horizontal line. Figure 8, it's another P loop, pull vertical. Push 3/4 loop here. At the bottom, we're going to do a 3/4 roll, quarter roll opposite. So there's your 3/4 and your quarter roll in the opposite direction. Figure 9 is simply a half roll. Figure 10, push to 45, 4 of 8. So 4 points of an 8-point roll in this 45. And now push half loop. 2 of 4 on this 45. And pull to level. Figure 11, half roll. 2 of 4, this is now figure 12. 2 of 4, pull half loop. Half snap. 4 of 8 in the same direction. Figure 13, half roll, pull 3/4 loop. Pull to vertical down here. This P loop, there we go. Pull to vertical down. And then pull level, figure 14. Pull to 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop. All the way back to 45 down inverted. And then on that 45 down inverted line, there'll be a half roll to 45 upright. And then pull level to end the figure and end the sequence. Okay, goody, so we're seeing a few mistakes. Let's talk about that a little bit. The unknown is hard.
The unknowns are hard for the pilots. The previous flights, the pilots have flown their known, which is published the end of the preceding year, and you have plenty of time to practice. Your freestyle you design. The unknowns are like no other, where your competitors submit figures, and then these figures are comprised into a sequence that you've never flown. You don't have the opportunity and the luxury to go up and practice them. So you rehearse them on the ground and you memorize these sequences. And so you're flying a flight that you're not very familiar with as flying your freestyle and known flight. And it's very challenging for the competitors. And not only is it challenging, but when you put in very tough weather conditions as we have today with the wind, it puts another curveball in there that the competitors have to judge with. And also, we're around 1,200 feet field elevation today. Well, with the temperatures, we're roughly 4,100 foot density altitude. And so the airplanes also are having a little more difficult today with the wing holding on, with the G loading, and also the amount of power that is being produced out of the motor. So the unknowns pose a great challenge to these pilots.
That's for sure. It's a challenging situation, and a lot of people would find themselves hard-pressed to remember all these figures on the ground, then put themselves in airplanes, cinch up the seatbelts as tight as they can, push a bunch of negative Gs, staring outside, looking at where you're on the box, finding you've made mistakes in positioning, trying to recover those while also flying the sequence correctly, remembering all the rotations and all the order, and showing good discipline in all your stops. It's too much for all of us all the time. No one can do it perfectly every time. We all make mistakes. So we see those here today, and we have a lot of compassion for anyone who's doing it. In our live stream coverage, we're not going to focus on mistakes, but we have to call them out a little bit when we see them, because you can see them at home as well. We're hopeful, of course, everyone will fly through these flights cleanly. But that's never the case. The unknowns are always a big differentiator for pilots, and of course we saw that in our own Unlimited. You know, getting through the unknown is not very easy, for sure. Okay, we have up next, that's Thomason. Up next we have Brit Lincoln. And which sequence is Brit flying?
Brit Lincoln is going to be flying sequence D today.
Sequence Delta for Brit. Brit's flying an extra 330 SC. Brit's beginning her warm-up figure. Brit's a strong pilot, up-and-comer, flying on the advanced team this year. I happen to be coaching the advanced team, so I've gotten to know Brit quite well. And she's a real motivated pilot, really good technique, and a strong advanced pilot. This will be a big unknown for Brit and all the pilots today. Anything can happen with these flights. Brit's currently in first position, and that's because she's flown very, very well, but the fact is being in first is not always very easy sometimes too. So sometimes mistakes can happen because people are looking beyond, or they're nervous about how they'll do. Of course, everyone's nervous. I'm really excited to watch Brit fly and see how she does. Looking at sequence Delta right now, she'll be beginning the sequence with the reverse half Cuban with a snap roll of 45.
And as Brit gets herself positioned, as she comes into the box, she is from the Oneida, Tennessee area, and flying the extra 330 SC, very popular airplane of choice amongst the aerobatic competitors. We've seen a lot of 330 SCs flying here in Kansas this week. They have become the airplane of choice at the World Aerobatic Championships produced by Walter Extra. A wonderful machine. Does a very, very good job. And Brit's been a member of the IAC and flying aerobatics for the past 5 years. She competed in 2019 in primary and a super decathlon, and has competed in over 20 regional contests over the past 2 U.S. nationals also. She's a volunteer judge like so many of us all throughout regional and national contests here in the U.S. She loves the sport. She's very passionate about it. And Craig Gifford is the current owner of the 330 SC that Brit is flying.
I think the winds have picked up a little bit, in fact, in the last few minutes. What do you think?
I think so.
I feel our tent lifting up around us here.
Yes,
Hopefully
my sunglasses are elevating.
Yeah. Well, here she comes. I hear the whistle from the chief judge, Peggy Rittinger. Brit's diving in from the south, setting up for figure 1, which will be a pull to 45, snap roll, and then push 5/8 loop all the way back to inverted. half roll on the bottom. Figure 2, diagonal Humpty, pull 45, 2 of 4, pull half loop here to 45 upright, two of 2 in this 45, pull upright. Figure 3 is another diagonal Humpty, this time pulling to the 45, 4-point roll here. Pull half loop here, all the way back to 45 down inverted. And on this 45, she'll do a half roll to 45 upright, and then pull level to end the figure. Figure 4, pull vertical, quarter roll up, Humpty. She's taking that figure quite a ways to the south, so she can set this up. This is set up for the square loop, which is probably the most challenging figure of the sequence. So she'll pull over the top here in a half loop, back to vertical down, quarter roll now to the right, so she can push out to inverted, going back downwind. Competitors want to set these square loops to the right in the middle of the box. On a windy day, that's a challenge. Push vertical now for the first leg of the square loop. Push over the top. Snap roll needs to be centered on the top line. Push vertical down now. And then push back to level. Figure 6, 2 of 4, half loop up. Half snap, 4 of 8, same direction. Figure 7, it's an S. This is what we call a connector. It's a figure that's inserted into the sequence to help with positioning. So she'll pull to a 5/8 loop back to 45 upright. Then perform a half roll this 45 and pull another 5/8 loop to upright. Where she will do a half roll to establish inverted flight for the next figure, figure 8. Figure 8 is a diagonal Humpty. Push 45, 4 of 8. And now push half loop to 45 down inverted. On this 45, a little 2 of 4. Pull level, figure 9. Figure 9 is another Humpty, another connecting figure. Quarter roll up, pull Humpty, quarter roll down. And this quarter roll down again, she's going to want to do a left roll because she'll need to push inverted, going upwind to start figure 10. Figure 10 is the goldfish. Push 45. Full roll on the 45. Pull 3/4 roll. Or 3/4 loop, rather. Looks like she's a little close to us. Force has lost her in frame. Right in the front of the box now. Push now to level flight. Figure 11, full roll. Push half loop down. One and a half roll on this line here. Figure 12, pull vertical, push 3/4 loop. And on the bottom, a 3/4 roll, quarter roll in the opposite direction. So 3/4, quarter roll. Figure 13 is another P loop, pull vertical half roll, pull 3/4 loop. And the final figure is a P loop as well. So figure 14, P loop, pull 3/4 loop, 8-point roll on top. Continue the pull all the way to vertical. 2 of 8 on the vertical downline push out. So here's the pull 3/4 loop with an 8-point roll on top. pulling now to vertical down, 2 of 8, and push out to complete the figure and the sequence.
Big push.
Big push there. Very nice flight for Brit. Pretty clean. No major errors.
Nice and crispy.
Nice and crispy,
Nice
yes.
and crispy.
Very good technique there from Brit. You are watching the International Aerobatic Club's live stream coverage of the U.S. National Aerobatic Championships. I'm Jim Burke, commenting today and giving you a play-by-play. I'm sitting here with Goody Thomas, fellow Unlimited competitor and all-around nice guy. Forrest Fox is on the camera. Peggy Rindinger is our chief judge. We were watching the Advanced Free Unknown. Just watched Brit Lincoln fly. Darren Beam and Ryan Chapman flew early, and we did not get those on live stream. They'll be, we'll have their videos posted later. Stan Moy flew, then Tom Thomason, then Brit Lincoln. Up next, we have Mike Galloway. After him, we have Steve Johnson, then Christopher Magan. Goody, you have some information for us on whoever Mike Galloway is? I think I might know who that guy is.
Mike Galloway.
Everyone knows who Mike Galloway
Everybody
is.
knows Mikey. He's been in the sport for quite some time. Been competing in aerobatic competition since the 90s. Another Texas boy, Frisco, Texas.
Does Spanky arrive in Black Hawk helicopters typically? Is that how he arrives?
Yes, that's how.
Forrest has them in frame right now.
He has a Black Hawk helicopter escort most
Squadron.
of the time. Extra 300S. Mikey Galloway will be flying today. Interesting with Mike, sport a long time, 3 advanced aerobatic teams, and also an unlimited pilot on the unlimited team in 2015 and 2017. We hear Mike spooling up, possibly coming in for his warm-up figure.
And which sequence is Mike flying?
And Mike today will be flying sequence F. We have seen that flown. Pilot number 1, Darren Beam, flew sequence F.
All right.
And looking forward to seeing Mike fly.
Well, you're watching Advanced Free Unknown, which we expect to have concluded by about 4 o'clock today. After that, we'll have a mixed program with the glider intermediate unknown, the power primary unknown. Of course, the primary pilots fly the same sequence each time. We call it the unknown because that's what we call it for the other pilots, but they'll fly the same sequence they flew for the known program. The other competitors in intermediate, advanced, and limited are flying unknown programs, which are challenging, and we're seeing some errors show up because it's hard to practice those unknowns. You have to practice all the figures from the catalog to get yourself ready. It's a lot easier to practice the known and the free. So this is where a lot of the carnage is, people like to say. The scores can change, the rankings shuffle. We did see one really strong flight by Brit Lincoln just a little bit ago. Should keep her in really good position. Currently she's at the top of the leaderboard. We're waiting for some scores to come in. We'll share them with you when they come in. And right now we have Mike Galloway in the hold, preparing to come in to start his sequence Foxtrot, which begins with a half roll. And then after that, the outside square loop. You can ask us questions if you like, using the live chat on YouTube, part of our live stream. Just go in there and in the chat box, type in a question. We'll get to your questions when we get a break. I see Forrest running back to the camera. I hear Mike coming in. I'm sure he'll be in frame soon. Mike must be doing his wags right now. Rolled inverted, and now pushing for the square loop. Push to vertical. Push over the top. Snap roll on the top, which should be perfectly centered on that top line. Push to vertical down. And then push back to level to complete the square loop. Figure 3, 2 of 4, half loop up. Half snap, 4 of 8, same direction. Figure 4 is an S, a connecting figure. These are figures used by the pilots to correct their positioning and set themselves up for the next figure. So he'll be doing an S, which is a 5/8 loop, followed by another 5/8 loop, pulling now to 45 upright, half roll to 45 inverted, and then pulling to horizontal to complete the S. And at the bottom of this figure, he has a half roll to inverted to set himself up for figure 5, which begins in inverted flight. So he'll pull back to level here, half roll. And figure 5, push 45 for the diagonal Humpty. 4 of 8 on this first 45. Push half loop now to 45 down inverted. Two of 4 on this 45. Pull level. Figure 6, another Humpty bump. Pull 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop. Back to 45 down inverted. And now a half roll on this 45 down. Pull back to level. Figure 7, pull 45 for the next diagonal Humpty bump. There's 3 of them in the sequence, 2 of 4 up. Pull to 45 down upright. Two of 2 on this 45. Pull level. Figure 8, P loop, pull vertical, push 3/4 loop. Three-quarter roll, quarter roll opposite direction here. There's a 3/4, quarter roll opposite. Figure 9, pull 45, snap roll on the 45 up. Push 5/8 loop. Half roll on the bottom here. Figure 10, be another reverse half Cuban, pull to 45, half roll, pull 5/8 loop, and a half roll on the bottom, back to inverted flight, setting us up for the goldfish. Figure 11, the goldfish, push 45, full roll on the 45. Pull now for the looping portion of the goldfish, which is a 3/4 loop. All the way back to 45 upright. And push to level flight. Figure 12. This is a full roll followed by a push half loop down and a 1.5 roll on the bottom. Figure 13 is an S, another connecting figure. So pull 5/8 loop to the inverted 45, half roll, and pull 5/8 loop again to inverted with a half roll on top. And now another P loop. This is the one that begins with a 3/4 pull, 3/4 loop with 8-point roll on top. And pull continues all the way to vertical down, where there's a 2 of 8 and a push out to inverted. Pull vertical down, 2 of 8, push to inverted, end of that figure, end of the sequence. Mike Spanky Galloway flying sequence foxtrot. All right, the wind is definitely picking up at this point. I don't know if you can hear at home the wind rustling on our microphones. Hopefully we have those shielded well enough you don't hear a lot of wind noise. But we are being battered by the wind. Our judges are as well. I can see, I'm surprised their hats are still on their heads. The tents are swaying, the antenna is swaying, the grass is waving all around. If there were trees here, they'd be bowing. Wind is strong out of the southwest.
Yeah, Kansas is absolutely living up to its reputation. Toto and Dorothy would not be disappointed as these winds, Jim has said repeatedly, have just continued to increase. And I can't reiterate for everyone watching at home how difficult, and I say difficult, this is for these pilots, flying these unknown sequences in extremely challenging conditions.
Well, that's for sure. It's not an easy situation to fly a free unknown on any given day, but when you have a situation like this, conditions like this, it makes it even harder. You're watching Advanced Free Unknown Flight. After this, we'll have the glider intermediate unknown, the power primary unknown. Spanky, Mike Galloway, also known as Spanky, just flew. We also had Brit Lincoln fly before him. Up next, we have Steve Johnson flying an MX aircraft MX2. Steve's out of Nashville, Tennessee. Which sequence is Steve flying?
Steve will be flying Program G. We have not had a Program G.
Program Golf. All right.
Yet today, and pilot number 7, we're getting through the 19 pilots, slowly chipping away.
All right, sequence Golf, I have it in front of me now. It begins with a diagonal Humpty. It's currently 95 degrees. We're gonna get up to about 97, 98 today.
And for all those that don't know Steve Johnson, wonderful individual out of the Tennessee area, Nashville, flying an MX-S aircraft. He's been flying this beautiful aircraft for many years, over 70 competitions Steve has flown, and multiple U.S. national championships. He just recently accompanied the United States Unlimited team to Poland in 2022. Been helping the Unlimited team get prepared for World Championships with his lovely wife, Alice. And Steve was also a member of the 2016 advanced team in Poland. He's the chairman of our safety committee, very important committee within the IAC, as safety is a high priority on the list, along with a judges school instructor. Steve has been very dedicated to the sport.
Well, I hear Steve flying up there, but I'm not sure exactly where he is. That's like, oh, there's Forrest has found him in frame. Steve appears to be setting up for his warm-up figure. Pilots are allowed to fly one of 10 warm-up figures before they begin their sequence. And every pilot today, I believe, has chosen to fly a warm-up figure. They don't have to do it, but most of them do. Pilots use these figures to prepare themselves, to get their seatbelts situated, and also to see what the wind is doing. And today, it would be unlikely for pilots to avoid doing the warm-up figure because it's very important what the wind is doing. Clearly coming from the southwest, down here on the ground. Looks like that's the case in the air as well, but sometimes the conditions are different at altitude than they are on the ground, so got to make sure and check all that before you begin. You can definitely change your plan if the wind is not where you expect it. Steve's flying sequence Golf, which begins with a lay-down Humpty. And he'll be flying with an upwind entry. Some of the other sequences begin with a downwind entry, but Steve's beginning with the upwind leg. So he'll be coming in from north to south, from our left to our right, unlike some of the other competitors.
And everyone at home, just want to correct an error. I spoke, Steve was currently flying an MXS. I misspoke. He's in the 2-seat MX, which is still a wonderful airplane. He has the luxury of sticking somebody in that front seat and taking them for a fun aerobatic ride, flying the MX2 currently. Steve Johnson.
Looks like Forrest has him in frame right now, and he must be setting up to dive in. The big question when people are designing sequences is that square loop, because it's very hard to figure out where to put that, and a lot of people try to start with it, which means you have to start an inverted flight. You put it in the middle sequence, maybe you can use a connector to get to it, but in this case, Steve has chosen to put that late in the sequence. Figure 1 is going to be a diagonal Humpty from upright.
And one more interesting thing about the square loops, Jim, pilots typically sometimes make a mistake by not closing the end of the square loop. And what we mean by that, for all those listening, is the line that they finish, the loop is not proportional to the top of the loop. All right, here we go. Steve Johnson.
Figure 1, diagonal Humpty, pull 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop. half roll on the 45 down. Pull level, figure 2. It's P-loop, pull, 3/4 loop, 8-point roll. Pull to vertical down, 2 of 8. Push to inverted. Figure 3, push vertical. Push half loop here, it's called a push Humpty. And now a quarter roll down here, which you'll need to do to the left. So we can take the next figure upwind. Figure 4 is a P-loop, pull vertical, push 3/4, loop, quarter roll opposite, figure 5. Should be a full roll followed by a push half loop. Unless I have the wrong sequence in front of me. And he's wagging out. So he may have flown the wrong figure, may have decided he was too low and needed a break. This is a challenging construction, this sequence, because coming out of this P-loop, Goody, how fast will you be?
Oh, coming out of this P-loop and with downwind, you know, airspeed-wise, Steve's probably looking at 180 knots.
And then what's next?
And then he's got to pull down.
Push down.
A push down.
From a high speed.
From a high speed.
So this is a challenging sequence.
Yes, very challenging.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's a lot of power management going on in the airplane for these pilots, managing their energy state, going from a very high speed to more high speed. So they have to really control that in the preceding figure.
Yeah, I think it's possible that's what happened there, is he came out of that P-loop and found himself too fast to push down.
Very good awareness by Steve to catch that, so he doesn't put himself in a tight situation physically on his body.
Well, in any case, he's up there getting himself set up for the next figure. He'll have to dive or wag back in any case to set himself up for figure 5. He could begin with figure 4 if he wants, but I'm sure he's going to begin with figure 5, give himself the best chance possible for that push half loop down. Figure 5 is a full roll, push half loop, 1.5 roll on the bottom. All right, I heard a whistle. I don't see him on screen. Can't see with my eyes because he's above the tent line, but I think Steve is getting ready. There we are. Must have missed the roll, but he's pushing down the half loop down, 1.5 roll on the bottom. Figure 6, pull 45, snap roll. This is a reverse half Cuban with a snap roll on the 45. And now push 5/8 loop. Half roll on the bottom, back to upright. Figure 7, diagonal Humpty, pull 45. 2 of 4, pull half loop, 2 of 2 on this 45, pull upright, and to figure. Figure 8 is a connector, and he needs to do a quarter roll up, a pull Humpty, and a quarter roll down, and he's very low before this figure, so he needs to gain some altitude here. Quarter roll left here, and then push to inverted. He decided to pull instead. I think that's just the only way he could go, because that was a little bit low looking for the square loop. I wonder if that was going to happen to him.
Another break there for Steve to give himself a moment to collect his thoughts, figure out a new altitude start to re-enter the sequence. Very nice move on Steve Johnson's part.
You're watching live stream coverage of the U.S. National Airbag Championships. I'm Jim Burke. I'm assisted here by Goody Thomas, helping me with the play-by-play and commentary. Cameraman is Forrest Fox, our chief judge, Peggy Reedinger. Steve Johnson is flying. Sequence golf, taking a break, coming back in now. Probably to begin with figure 9, which is square loop, pushing vertical. Now he'll push to a level line across the top. Snap roll to be centered on that line. Push now. Okay, it looks like we're back. And I'm sure no way. That fixed it? That's horrible.
Yeah, I just had to reattach it.
All right, test, test, test. Okay, looks like we're back with video. You're watching live stream coverage of the 2023 National Airbag Championships. We just watched Steve Johnson finish up his flight. And we have somebody else in the box right now. I'm not sure exactly who it is.
Chris
Bring up the
Megan.
order of flight. Chris Magan. Is it Magan or Megan? How do you pronounce his name?
You know, we need to ask Chris.
Okay, I think it's Magan. I don't know exactly what it is, but anyway, it's Chris. Chris is up next.
I'm from South Carolina, so.
And Chris has an extra 330 SC, which is new to him, I think, this year. I'm not sure exactly, but first time I've seen him fly it. Which sequence is Chris flying?
Yeah, Chris today is going to be flying the sequence J. We've seen a couple J's flown today.
Forrest, we have only 3/4 of the window showing your video. Is that normal?
That's really unusual. Just do something. That's really odd.
Okay, that's probably what it is. If you go back to schedule, bet you it works now.
Let's see. You want schedule or you want?
Oh, we can do lower third. Great. I'll turn that. Whoops.
Not out, right?
Okay, we apologize about all the technical difficulties. Thinks we have things sorted out now. We should be watching Chris Magan come into the box pretty soon. He's already flown his warm-up figure. And is he flying Juliet then?
Yes, Chris Magan will be flying sequence Juliet, pilot number 8 from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. As Jim stated, a 330 SC aircraft being flown today. Currently 37 years to the date, captain at a major airline.
Sequence Juliet begins with a square loop, so we'll see Chris roll to inverted and perform his wags, his signaling from inverted flight. Adds a little extra challenge to the sequence to begin an inverted flight. We have winds at least 15 knots on the ground. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but I'm just going to guess based on what I'm feeling with my hat being blown off my head. It must be at least 15 knots, probably more. On the ground out of the southwest, probably even more than that in the air. It's been a factor for a number of the pilots today. Temperatures are high, 95, 96 actually right now, just raised up a little bit. Here's Chris performing his dive in with his wags, nice crisp wags. Setting himself up for figure 1, which is the square loop. From inverted, push to vertical. Push to level. Snap roll, centered on this line. Push to vertical down. And push back to level. And as Goody mentioned a little bit ago, this last line, we're seeing it right now, it must continue for the next figure so that that line is at least as long as the first line. That's one of the rules. Figure 2, push 45. This is the goldfish. Full roll on the 45 up. Pull 3/4 loop. Nothing on this 45 up. Push now to level. And full roll, push half loop down, 1.5 roll at the bottom. Back to upright, figure 4, diagonal Humpty, pull 45. 2 of 4, pull half loop. Two of 2 in the 45 down. Pull upright. Figure 5. P loop with an 8-point roll on top. So pull 3/4 loop with that 8-point roll centered on the top of this 3/4 loop. Looking for 8 points here. Each of them 45 degrees, and each of them performed at the same rate of roll. Pull now to vertical down. 2 of 8 on the down line. Push to inverted. And Chris performed a pull, may have felt like he was just a little bit too low to finish that figure. So he's pulled upright instead, and now he's wagging out to indicate to the judges he's taking a break. He'll come back in for either figure 5 or figure 6.
You know, Jim, another important item to point out here is the sequence construction by the pilots, how they put together these figures to allow them to get through the sequence. Number one, as easy as it is for them, but on the safety side, we've seen multiple competitors today maybe mismanage a little bit of where they started the sequence with the high density altitude, the heavy winds deteriorating some of the aircraft performance also has made some of the pilots have to take some breaks, gather their thoughts, and get some altitude underneath them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you make sometimes your plan just doesn't come together. Sometimes you have to adjust your plan. It's hard to adjust on the fly. For all kinds of reasons, you can find yourself in the wrong spot. And at that point, accepting it is the name of the game. Because if you're not where you need to be and you're not in a safe position, then all you can do is take a break and fight again another day. With wind conditions like this and the heat, the fact that it's a free unknown, which is always very challenging, we're just bound to see mistakes of all kinds. People forgetting figures, performing the wrong rotations, finding out their wave outside the box on the north side, being too low. And we've talked about this before, but just being too fast. It's very easy to get too fast. If you're too fast, you're in a really bad spot. And that's really probably what happened to a lot of people coming out of that P-loop. It's a challenging figure. Go over the top, doing the 8-point roll, pulling to vertical. By the time you pull to vertical, you're already very fast. And general advice is to cut the throttle at that point. But if people forget to do that, or if they think they don't have to, sometimes they get going really fast. They have a huge push near the ground. It's just not a comfortable position. Okay, Chris sitting back up, wagging in. On the cross box, needs to be inverted. And he'll push now to vertical. This is a hammerhead. And quarter roll on the down line. He'll need to do this to the left so he can pull upright going upwind for figure 7. Figure 7 is a reverse half Cuban. Pull 45. Snap roll on this 45. Didn't quite get a snap roll to pop off. That can happen sometimes. And now maybe he was going a little fast for a snap roll, hard to say. Now he'll push or maybe take another break. I think this aircraft is a little new to him, and that always makes it extra challenging as well. All right, we understand that Chris is going to be returning to the airport. And we heard that there was a mechanical of some kind. We're going to just sit tight. Watch Chris set up for a landing. And we'll get ready for our next pilot. And in the case of mechanical, Chris will land, look at the aircraft. We have technical advisors who will come by and help him out. If there's something that needs to be fixed, he'll take a look at it with him. And he'll be able to complete his flight later. But just put him later in the flight order is all. Chris Magum was pilot number 8. Pilot number 9, Michael Lentz, flying a Staudacher. Michael is another competitor on the U.S. Advanced Aerobatic team. We'll be competing at the World Advanced Aerobatic Championships in Jean, Nevada in late October. Strong pilot, finished I think first place in the first flight, had a 0 in the second flight, and now I'm sure looking to make up for that in the unknown. A challenging unknown, challenging weather conditions. Michael's a strong pilot. Which sequence is Michael flying, Goody?
Yeah, Michael Lentz today will be flying sequence F Foxtrot from the Grand Forks, North Dakota area, flying the Staudacher 300 SD. Mike is the current 2023 advanced team member. He will also be joining the advanced team out in Nevada for the World Advanced Championships. One unique thing about Mike, you can always usually spot a black hat walking around the ramp or helping other individuals. He loves wearing his black cowboy hat and a fan to many other hats.
Is it a cowboy hat? I think it's leather. Do cowboys wear leather hats? I mean, they might be leather, but not that kind of leather.
Yeah, maybe not.
I think it's more like a night in the town kind of.
Yes.
Night at the Roxbury kind of hat. I don't know.
He also is a professor at the UND and head of the aerobatic program. Very involved with aerobatics. Students are there to fly in the super decathlon, mainly in the primary and sportsman categories. And he's led his collegiate team to 10 national collegiate aerobatic titles. He's very experienced in multiple aircraft. He's flown all models of extras, the Panzels, and 3,000 hours of dual given in a super decathlon. That's a lot of flying, Jim.
Yes, it is. I've given some dual in a decathlon. It's hard to get me out of it. I can get in there okay.
Yeah.
There's a little artwork.
You're a tall guy.
Yeah.
Mike also is very involved with the sequence committee in the IAC, and it looks like Michael might be coming in for a warm-up figure, as all the pilots have done today, helping them getting their positioning for the aircraft as they enter the box for their sequence.
Of course, is manning some other difficulties right now, so he doesn't have Michael in frame, but that's good he mentioned. Michael is currently doing his warm-up figure. You're seeing blue sky. We're watching Michael perform his warm-up figure right now. And Michael will be flying sequence Foxtrot, which begins with a half roll. So this is a sequence that uses a connector to turn the aircraft upside down, which is a good strategy for a figure that needs to start inverted right at the beginning. A lot of people choose to do that if they can. You're, of course, watching live stream coverage of the U.S. National Aerobatic Championships. I'm Jim Burke. I'm here with Goody Thomas doing play-by-play. There we have Michael Lentz in the red, white, and blue flag starter. Michael's sequence will begin from the south, which is on our right. Strong winds today. Lots of heat. Gusty. A great day for contest in Kansas.
Yeah, current temperature here for those Jim Cantori fans out there, 97 degrees. Again, I stated earlier, the density altitude here is well over 4,000 feet. Definitely posing some challenges for these pilots. Winds well in excess of 20 knots.
We've had great weather all week, just turned on us today. Until today, it was just about perfect. But today the wind came out. Here we are. Michael's setting up right now. We're going to see him come in a little bit. This is our schedule. Order of flight. We were on pilot number 9 of 19, almost halfway through. Haven't seen any scores posted yet. I was hoping we'd have scores of some kind by now. They've done a good job of getting scores together throughout the flight programs previously, but I guess in this case we just haven't had time to put the scores together. When we have scores, we'll let you know what they are. But from what I've seen so far, I would expect Brit to still be on top. She was in first place coming in, and she had a really great flight. No major issues. A number of other competitors have had zeros or struggled through the sequence. This is not an easy sequence. Michael Lentz had a struggle in the free program, but is normally one of the strongest competitors out here, and is certainly someone who can fly this sequence cleanly. So he's a competitor here for sure. Let's see how it goes. He's diving in now, I believe. Figure number 1 is simply a half roll. Following that, we have the square loop, the outside square loop. So we'll see him wag in. Maybe he's already wagged. Pull level, half roll for figure 1. There's our figure 1. Figure 2, push vertical for the square loop, leg number 1. There's a vertical line. Push to level flight now. Snap roll. Push to vertical down. for leg number 3 of the square. And now leg number 4 is the inverted horizontal line that follows it. Figure number 3, 2 of 4, half loop up. Half positive snap, 4 of 8 in the same direction on top. So there's a left-footed half snap, 4 of 8 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4 points of 8-point roll. Figure 4, the second connector, it's an S. So he will pull 5/8 loop, and then half roll, and then pull another 5/8 loop. Here's the first 5/8 loop pull. Look at how long he's trying to take that line to get back upwind. That's how strong the wind is today. They have to work very hard to get back upwind. 5/8 loop pull, pulling to the 45. Now a half roll, and pulling again a 5/8 loop back to horizontal. Well, he'll do another half roll to set himself up in inverted flight. Preparing for figure 5, which is a diagonal Humpty. Push to 45 inverted, 4 of 8. And then push half loop to 45 down inverted. Two of 4 in the 45. Pull upright. Into figure 6, pull 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop. And then on this 45 inverted, there will be a half roll. And that will end the figure if he pulls upright. Figure 7, another diagonal Humpty, pull 45, 2 of 4 on this 45. Pull half loop here again. And on this 45, a 2 of 2. That's 2 half rolls. Figure 8, pull vertical, push 3/4 loop. Quarter roll opposite on this line here. Figure 9 is the reverse half Cuban with a snap roll in the first 45 and a push 5/8 loop. A half roll on the bottom. Excuse me. That's been coming for a little bit. Half roll.
Bless you, Jim.
Pull 5/8. I've been struggling to contain that for the last 30 seconds. Half roll on the bottom of this reverse half Cuban. Now figure 11. Push 45. Full roll on the 45. Pull 3/4 loop. All the way to 45 upright. Push level. Figure 12, full roll, push half loop down. One and a half roll, bottom of the half loop. Figure, that was figure 12. Figure 13 is an S again, connector. Pull 5/8 loop, 45 down inverted. And then a half roll. Pull 5/8 loop again, half roll on top. Figure 14. This is the P loop with the vertical down and the push out. So pull 3/4 loop, 8-point roll on top. Pulling all the way to vertical down for 2 of 8. So here's the pull, 8-point roll now. 2 of 8 down and a push out. Big push here.
You can hear that power reduction, Jim.
Yes, you can.
Managing that airspeed around that hard
reason.
push.
And wagging out. All right. Well,
Nicely done.
A nice flight for Michael Lentz. I'm sure he's hoping he'll rise back up in the standings after that. You're, of course, watching live stream coverage of the U.S. National Airback Championships. We are currently watching the advanced free unknown flight. Michael Lentz just flew. We're about halfway through our 19 competitors. Some strong flights so far. A few people have struggled. It's a challenging sequence, challenging weather conditions. Following advanced free unknown, we expect to be done about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. We'll have a program that's mixed of the glider intermediate and the power primary. So stay tuned for that after we're done here. I'm Jim Burke, IC President, here with Goody Thomas, fellow Unlimited competitor, all-around nice guy, helping us out, introducing us to all the pilots as we go through the day. Who do we have next, Goody?
We have Kate Volkova. She will be flying Sequence J. Juliet, she's from the Washington State area, flying an extra 300S.
That wind has, I think, come out in the west more now. It wasn't
Yeah,
out
you
of the
know,
south.
Jim, I was just double checking our, I just got an update here, the local METAR just 7 minutes ago, coming out fresh for us. Right now they're showing the winds at the surface 180 degrees, 14 gusting to 24 knots. The winds are shifting on us a little more directly out of the south than earlier. Still 97 degrees, and density altitude is continuing to climb. We're 4,191 feet now, as that will continue to pose a challenge for these pilots.
For sure, and especially when we have people getting a little bit low, which we saw them deciding not to push for that P-loop with the vertical down, the push out. When the density altitude's high and you're coming down a lot hotter than you expected to be, a little lower to the ground, that's a really scary feeling for sure.
We've seen a few aircraft today due to these conditions. If you've watched closely, a little too much G on the wing, which will cause a mini stall. And you'll see a wing dip as an aircraft goes around the corner. And with these wind conditions, high density altitude, high temperatures, the air is not as dense as some of these pilots are used to. So they introduce little mini stalls. And the pilot is very cognizant of that. Also, that can pose a problem. It can lead to the aircraft not producing as much performance as the pilots do and having the speed and energy for going in maneuvers.
Well, as I said, we're about halfway through our pilots in the Advanced Free Unknown program. So far, without trying to assess them in terms of scores, I could say pretty clearly that Brit Lincoln and Michael Lentz have had the best flights. There's a number of zeros and some other sequences. I'm going to take a break for a moment here. I guess we have some issues to cover, so I'll be back with you shortly. I didn't think so, Goody. Sorry, man. You did a
Oh,
good
it
job,
wasn't?
though.
Okay.
Say again?
I can still hear you a little bit, so.
Okay. Well, we're back on now. Okay. Hey, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Audio was, possibly you can hear us a little bit through the camera's mic, but our mics were disabled for a little bit. So you got a break from us while Kate Volkova flew her sequence. But we are back. Have a question from the live chat. Why don't you see any Edge 540s at the intermediate and advanced categories? What do you think the answer is to that, Goody?
You know,
What's your guess?
honestly, that's a great question. And I think the Edge 540s, they are not currently being produced, as you probably know. And I just don't think there are as many out there flying aerobatic competitions as there once were 15, 20 years ago. The extra 330 SCs, the MXs have really come onto the scene and started dominating a lot of the competition aerobatics.
Yeah, it's just not that many out there. I think a lot of them were taken up for the Red Bull air races. They used a lot of them and converted them all to race planes and just took them out of the aerobatic, libraries, I guess you could say. Just not as available to us as they used to be. Have you ever flown an Edge? I have not.
I have never flown an Edge.
Yeah, very lightweight airplane. I understand they fly really well. Well, you just watched Katarina Volkova fly. Couldn't hear us that time, but that's probably a nice break for everyone else. I'm Jim Burke. I'm here with Goody Thomas, Forrest Fox on the cameras, Peggy Riddinger, our chief judge. Looks like we're going to take a break maybe for a judge conference. So we're going to sign off for a little bit. We'll be back with you shortly. All right, we are back. Welcome back, everyone. We had a judges' conference, turned off the live feed for a little bit, but we're back now live. I'm Jim Burke here with Goody Thomas. You're watching the 2023 U.S. National Airbag Championships. Up next, we have Barrett Hines. Goody, tell us a little bit about Barrett if you got some info on it.
Yeah, Barrett Hines going to be flying sequence D as in Delta, and Barrett is from the California Newberry Park area, extra 300. Currently, Barrett holds some IC positions, the Rules Committee Chair, and also he's in a working group with the rule book, a very important part of our sport.
Yeah, he's the rules chair. I've worked with him on that. Real smart guy. Flies an extra 300. This is, of course, the Advanced Free Unknown program. Barrett is our 11th competitor of 19.
And for those of you just join us, it's very, very windy here, 24 knot winds, 97 degrees as Barrett Hines goes into his warm-up figure, into the sequence.
Figure 1, pull 45, snap roll, push 5/8 loop. Half roll, back to upright. Figure 2, pull 45, 2 of 4. Pull half loop here, back to 45 upright. 2 of 2 on the second 45. Pull to upright, end of figure 3. It's another diagonal Humpty. Pull 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop to 45 down inverted. And on this 45 line, we'll see a half roll, back to 45 upright, and then pull to level upright to end the figure. Figure 4 is a connector, it's a Humpty, and Barrett has found himself on the north side of the box. I'm sure I want to come back to the south side of the box a little bit to start this figure. So figure 4, Humpty, pull vertical, quarter roll on the upline, pull half loop, and then a quarter roll on the downline. Barrett will need to do this quarter roll to the left because the end of this figure he'll want to push to inverted for the square loop. So looks like we're seeing, not sure exactly what he did there. He did a wag and then pushed out, I think on the wrong axis. I didn't see what happened there. I was watching the video feed at the time, but I think Barrett is taking a break. Maybe he just chose to take the break in the downline. That's why he wagged out. I don't know. In any case, I hear him circling above us right now, and Forrest is looking for him in frame. He's a little bit behind us, so we'll wait for Barrett to set back up. Very challenging, as you were saying, Goody, very challenging sequences. This is the free unknown, the harder sequence for the advanced category with some really difficult pushes, some hard figures, but also a hot day, currently 98 degrees. And what do you think the wind speed is?
The winds are well in excess of 20 knots. Last local METAR here showing 24 knots out of the south. I don't have a accurate 3,000 foot winds, but I can only imagine equal to or greater up at altitude. We've seen a lot of the pilots managing this wind, some better than others. It's part of competition. One thing good about today is every pilot is having to manage the wind. The category hasn't been split due to running out of time where some pilots fly in the wind, some don't. So it's everybody's issue today, and everybody has a different way of managing this wind, and it's will 100% factor into the outcome and the scores at the end of this flight once it's tallied up.
One nice thing about the wind is it keeps the biting flies off of my legs. They were bothering me a little bit earlier, but
That's
not
right.
anymore.
Except I got a lot of dust in my eyes.
That's true. Okay, Barrett now wagging in. I'm sure setting up for figure 5, which is the square loop. Push to vertical here. And then push to a horizontal line on top with a snap roll centered on that line. Now push to vertical down. And then push to level inverted. Big push here. Then, of course, required to draw a line before starting the next figure, which will be a 2 of 4, half loop up. This is figure 6. When it's windy like this in the ground, it's usually much windier in the box. We can only guess what wind condition you're seeing up there, but it must be very strong. Half, snap here, 4 of 8, same direction. That finishes figure 6. Figure 7 is a connector, an S figure. Of course, the wind's still within limits on the ground, so the contest will continue. If they go above the limits, the chief judge will call the contest according to the rules. Should be on a 45 now, half roll on the 45. And another break from Barrett. From my vantage point watching the video feed, it's hard to tell. He may have just pulled a half loop instead of pulled 5/8 loop back to the 45. But in any case, he'll set back up. Figure 8 begins in inverted flight. He can set up with figure 7, starting in inverted flight and pulling down, or he could set up for figure 8 in inverted flight, but either way he'll have to start in inverted flight to resume the sequence. Wind limits for the advanced category are 25 knots, and we're not at that point yet. Could happen today, could definitely happen tomorrow. But for now, the show goes on. Barrett's circling around behind us, getting set back up. Probably the beginning on figure 8, which would be a push 45. It's a diagonal humpty, push 45, 4 of 8. Push over the top. There we go. That figure would begin going upwind. He's currently flying in the downwind direction. So we'll expect him to turn back to the upwind before restarting the sequence. We've all been there. I remember the first, maybe the second time I came to the Nationals, I tried to fly advanced here and I zeroed a figure in the first flight. It can just be so frustrating and so confusing. It can take some time to set back up. You got to make sure you're back in the game mentally before you resume. All right, well, possibly Barrett's actually decided to land the aircraft. Looks like he's quite a ways away, and see Forrest following him on maybe final approach now. So we're going to move on from Barrett. Maybe we'll come back to him. We don't know exactly what happened. He may have decided not to finish the sequence. He may have decided he had to land for mechanical reasons. Let's go take a look at our schedule again. After Barrett Hines, we have Adam Messenheimer flying the MXS. And again, you're watching the Advanced Free Unknown flight and the 2023 U.S. National Aerobatic Championships. Forrest Fox on the camera, scanning the skies for us, squinting all day long, keeping all the technology humming. He's a man among men. Goody and I just kind of hunkered down in this tent here, trying to stay glued to the ground as best we can with these high winds.
Yes, Barrett Hines, we see him touching down in the distance. Not only has it been challenging flying, but after these pilots spend 3.5, 4 minutes of very intense concentration, they're faced with, landing these aircraft in very gusty conditions. Fortunately, the winds are favoring runway 17, landing to the south here. But all these aircraft are tailwheel aircraft, and definitely makes it challenging landing these aircraft in windy conditions. As Adam Messenheimer is coming into the box here for his warm-up figure from Herdon, Virginia, flying an MXS aircraft, single-seat MX, graduate of the University of Embry-Riddle, Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics. And he has had the privilege to train with many, many of your top unlimited pilots, and he credits so much of that and the guidance to where he has gotten in the sport. He was 2018 U.S. National Aerobatic Champion in intermediate category, Adam Messenheimer.
And while he was doing his safety figure, you may have seen some smoke coming out of the exhaust. That's the breather tube. We have different ways of dealing with oil that kind of bleeds off the inverted system. Sometimes we put it through a pipe out the back of the airplane. It goes into the atmosphere kind of harmlessly. Sometimes it goes in the exhaust, gets burned up. Different aircraft have different solutions. In the case of the MX, usually the exhaust takes care of the problem for us. So occasionally you'll see a little bit of oil coming through the exhaust. It's not dangerous. It's not smoke. It doesn't cause any problems for anybody. It does make a nice little trace in the sky, and that's what you saw there with Adam's safety figure. He's setting up now to come in for, what is it, sequence echo?
Sequence echo,
Okay.
Adam is flying, and you'll notice all the pilots here all have unique styles. And Adam has a very unique style, very crispy, very high rotation. His style of flying, very fast pace, although today he might slow the tempo down to gain ground back as he works the aircraft back into the wind. It'll be exciting to watch Adam and see what he has in store for us, like so many of the pilots today.
What food texture would you use to describe your own style? Would you say you're crispy as well, or would you crunchy, creamy? What would you say you are?
Yes, if I could self-critique or watch myself fly, I would say I'm like a crispy taco.
All right. Here comes Adam Messenheimer, wagging it inverted.
All right,
Adam.
Adam.
For figure one. This is the outside square loop. Push vertical. Push horizontal. Snap roll on the horizontal line. Should be perfectly centered. Push to vertical down. And push back to horizontal inverted to end that figure. Figure two, 2 of 4, pull half loop. And on top there will be a half positive snap and a 4 of 8 in the same direction. Figure 3. This is a connector figure, so push to 45 and then pull 5/8 loop. A reverse half Cuban with no roll on the 45. So push 45, now pull 5/8 loop. And at the bottom, a half roll. Diagonal Humpty, push 45, 4 of 8 on this first 45. Push half loop. Two of 4. Pull level. Figure 5, the second of 3 diagonal Humpties placed back to back here. Pull 45. 2 of 4. Pull half loop. Full roll on the 45 down here. I'm sorry, it's a 2 of 2. My mistake, I had my finger over the 2. That was correct, a 2 of 2. Figure 6, pull 45, 4-point roll. Pull half loop, very gusty right now on the ground here. Pull half loop to 45 down inverted. Very strong gusts, over 20, 25 knots. Half roll. Pull upright, figure 7 will be a P loop. Pull vertical. Push 3/4 loop.
Adam's doing a very nice job right now managing this wind. His box positioning has been very, very well managed so far. Still got many figures to go.
Solid flight. At the bottom of this P loop, 3/4 roll, 1/4 opposite. Figure 8, pull 45, snap roll. Push 5/8 loop, back to inverted. Half roll. Figure 9, pull 45. Half roll to 45. pull 5/8 loop. Half roll to inverted at the bottom. And now figure 10, push 45, full roll to 45, pull 3/4 loop. This is the goldfish. You'll continue pulling all the way back to 45 upright. Draw a line at this 45, and then push level flight to finish this figure. Figure 11, roll, push half loop down. There's the roll. That's a 1.5 roll. So he's pulling half loop down. This is supposed to have a 1.5 roll at the bottom. Looks like he did that at the top instead. Let's see what he does here. Now upright, then wagging out. He'll be taking a break after figure 11. That's an unfortunate mistake.
That's a very unfortunate mistake. Adam was having a very nice flight. These mistakes can happen anytime. It's a very intense environment. Not only is Adam trying to keep the airplane positioned the entire time, he's looking where he is in the box, calculating his next move on the next pull or the next push, managing his power, his airspeed, and managing the G's. Something that we haven't touched on much here is when a pilot flies upside down for extended periods of time, all the blood starts going to his upper torso, neck, and head area, and then the pilot introduces a hard pull toward the ground. We can introduce a G-lock scenario where the blood moves very quickly through the body and field of vision starts to get disrupted. Pilots do certain things to combat that, but there's a lot going on in the airplane and which can help induce errors and mistakes. It's unfortunate, but we're picking it back up. Adam's coming back in with some wing wags. Signal to the judges, he's starting over.
All right, going back upwind now. We'll have to see what figure he chooses to fly. If he begins with figure 13, he'll do a roll and then push half loop. Okay, looks like he's going to retry the figure that he did incorrectly, but that can't be scored again. He's already received a score for that figure. Figure 12, pull half loop. Figure 13 is a 5/8 loop, beginning with a half roll. We can see him working really hard to get back to the south side.
He's really driving that figure.
Yeah, half roll, pull 5/8 loop here. That's a well thought out sequence. I like this one. Seems like it's positioning everything really well. And now pull level and the P loop with the 8-point roll on top. So pull 3/4 loop, 8-point roll on top.
These 8 points are very hard for the judges to see. So as you watch Adam, he's being very precise, showing the judges every single point.
And now pull back to vertical down, 2 of 8, and push out to complete the figure and the sequence. All right, Adam Messenheimer flying the MXS. Strong flight, one unfortunate error, it happens sometimes.
Okay.
Gonna get the schedule back up for everybody to see. You're of course watching the advanced free unknown flight. We just saw Adam Messenheimer fly. Prior to that we had Barrett Hines, may have had a mechanical, maybe coming back, we're not sure, but he had to abort his flight part of the way through. Chris Magon also aborted his flight, we may see him come back later on. You've seen Darren Beam, Ryan Chapman, Stanley Moy, Tom Thomason, Brit Lincoln, Mike Galloway, Steve Johnson, Chris Magon, Michael Lentz, Kat Volkova, Barrett Hines, and now Adam Messenheimer fly. Of those, Britt and Michael Lentz had the strongest flights, pretty clean flights. Some flights had some pretty major errors, but everyone struggled with the wind, of course. Up next, we have David Taylor coming in the Giles 200. I'm sure Goody has some information on David Taylor for us right now.
Yeah, David Taylor, a longtime competitor. He will be flying in front of us today. Sequence E is in Echo. He's out of the Springfield, Virginia area in a Giles 200. single seat Giles 200. Airplane's been around for a little while, flown in most categories of competition. And one note here, current or past Giles 200 pilot Lou Shattuck. Looks like he will be inducted to the IC Hall of Fame in the November at the EAA Museum in Oshkosh. That could have possibly already happened.
No, we'll do that in November. That's right.
In November.
Yeah.
Okay, I was checking my
Lou's
notes
a friend,
here.
and I'm really excited for him. I can't wait to be there.
A very exciting moment. Yep. And David has flown in many regional contests throughout the years, going all the way back into 2015. Numerous contests. He's won many first place at the regional level and the advanced category. And the winds continue to howl here in Kansas.
I would say steady state winds are between 10 and 15 knots at the moment. Occasional gusts to 20 knots, maybe a little higher than that, 25 possibly. Competition will continue as long as the winds stay within the limits set within the rules, and currently they must be. We'll keep watching that. The chief judge will make a decision on that as the day progresses, but we're expecting that the flying will continue and this will be a complete flight program. Oh, in probably less than an hour. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pilots left. About an hour left of flying in this program. According to the IC rulebook, flight will not be conducted with steady wind velocity if the surface exceeds 25 knots from main direction. That's the steady wind velocity, not the gusting winds, but the steady wind velocity, which is a really high wind limit. And also, if the crosswind component for the active runway exceeds 20 knots in the advanced category, that's the limit. And I would guess right now we're probably not above 20 knots steady state, so therefore the crosswind component can't be above 20 knots, so I'm sure we're going to continue. Who do we have next? David Taylor. That's right. Let me get David's information up here. Get his name on there. David Taylor flying the Giles 200. David's had some pretty good flights in the known and the free program.
Yes, David has had some very nice flights. He's into his warm-up figure from a push, getting his body and belts adjusted to the acclimation of G's that he is about to endure. He's nice pivot around, vertical down. He's exiting back to the north. He'll be setting himself up to come in for Sequence Echo today. We just saw Adam Messenheimer fly Sequence Echo, and we will be waiting to see how David will tackle this sequence with these current conditions here in Salina, Kansas. And for all of you just tuning in, current METAR as of 5 minutes ago, as Jim was saying, we have to have steady state over 25 knots, not including gusts, but the wind continues to increase 170 degrees at 16 knots, gusting to 27 knots on the surface. So as the day continues on, the winds continue on. We've had wonderful weather here all week. Beautiful blue skies, cool mornings, some hot afternoons to be expected. But this is our first day of very challenging winds. No matter what category you fly in, the winds can pose an extreme challenge putting up a good flight.